Hi, friends. My name is Eric Strauss. I'm running for president in 2024, and I'm launching a write in campaign here in 2020 to provide a real alternative to the two options we currently have. Uh, and this video is one in a series of videos in which I am going to address various issues in politics and also ask you to write my name in on the ballot in 2020 uh, as a way of launching my 2024 campaign. Now, I'm not going to have a chance to respond to all the comments that people leave on these videos directly, but I do want to mention one, which is one individual indicated that they would be happy to vote for me in 2024, but that they feel it's important for them to vote for their preferred candidate in 2020 so the other candidate doesn't win. If you were in a border ground state, a battleground state, and you feel it's important to vote for cast your vote in favor of one candidate because that candidate, could make a difference. I totally understand that, and I respect that decision. I understand that I don't present a genuine threat to either of those candidates in the current election, and if that's your choice, you are an informed voter who I respect. So please feel free to do that if you feel like you're in a battleground state. I encourage you to vote with your conscience as to whichever the two existing very poor candidates is preferable. If, however, you're not in a battleground state and your state always goes blue, always goes red, or whatever, consider writing me in as a candidate on the ballot. So, anyway, this video is called Civility and the Marketplace of Ideas, and it's a video in which I want to address how important it is for us to begin our political discussions with talking about how we're going to engage in them. So, I've brought up a couple of a document I want to reference here in doing this because, as is often the case in life, things just sort of line up the way that destiny would incline you to think they might. And I'm happy to be doing a debate case right now in which we're working on civility. I'm working with a student on a civility case. So I thought I'd reference that as life and art sort of match one another. If I'm going to be genuinely talking about civility in a meaningful way as a statesman who's running for president, then I need to define my terms. And I've got a couple of definitions here. Civility is characterized by speakers who present themselves as reasonable and courteous, treating even those with whom they disagree as though they and their ideas are worthy of respect. Such discourse is polite, but also addresses conflict in such a way that the threat to another's face is lessened. Civility then goes beyond mere politeness to also offer an explicit affirmation of the value of the person and ideas with whom the speaker disagrees. On B, definition incivility. Similarly, incivility can be defined as features of discussion that convey an unnecessary disrespectful tone towards the discussion forum, its participants, or its topics. An additional key part of this definition is that incivility is viewed as unnecessary. The key distinction lies within the relevance of the information shared, stating that uncivil comments do not add anything of substance to the discussion. So, if in fact a significant problem with the political status quo is a lack of civility, then it means that we are not talking to each other about ideas so much as we are talking to each other about each other. Who's to blame? What's wrong with the people who disagree with us? And how and why our own particular worldview ought be, ought attain total victory over the alternative, right? So I want to look at a couple of other bits of this document, and we'll see that this is actually a case for compulsory voting. I don't favor compulsory voting, but I'm making the argument here. And there's a lot of good points that are being made here that are about how our democracy works, regardless of compulsory voting. So this is one of the cards I want to read. Smith 13. Neither the left nor the right are free from criticism here because each pole of the modern political spectrum is guilty of attempting to force an abstract model onto the world due to their distorted epistemic status, a point I will explain further in a moment. In short, the psychological determinants of ideology have always been the distortion of human subjectivity. Political extremism is a product of ideology insofar that all extremism emerges from a totalitarian worldview that is made functional. More to the point, we can identify an ideological process precisely in how it operates as a totalized frame of reference. So you can see this in somebody like AOC, who views everything through the frame of reference of identity politics and leftist economics, and you know, begins with conclusions that have not been deliberated out adequately. I'm not just picking on the left here. There are equivalents on the right for sure, and I will address those as well. But that's the one that just pops to mind as being exemplary of somebody who's bringing a totalizing frame of reference into the political process where it doesn't belong. Now, you'll note I don't mean to be invalidating her as a person, but it's necessary that we understand that individuals are the ones who are either bringing these totalizing frames of references or rejecting them. I'm rejecting them in a way that says, let's be adults. Let's talk about issues in a real way. Let's stop positioning this as a zero-sum game against our political enemies. The result is if we don't, the result is a very one-dimensional interpretation motivated by the desire to mask over contradictions. Extremism always results in totalitarianism, and we can see this by looking at our own domestic extremists. In other words, you don't have to live in a totalitarian state to feel justified in blowing up a building. You just have to internalize an ideology as totalizing. For example, in debate, we're prone to saying things like we ought always prioritize upholding social justice. However, the singular application of any frame of reference always results in extremism, and eventually, if unchecked, totalitarianism. The alternative is upholding process integrity as a value. And that's exactly what it means to uphold civility. I also want to read this Kierkegaard card from 1847 because it explains how ownership of these processes and civility are powerfully linked. Participation in these processes and civility are powerfully linked. Yesterday, when I was live streaming, somebody came on named Juniper Hats, and they are one of these. I guess you call them a hater or a spiteful person. And I found this card, this bit by Kierkegaard here, extraordinarily revelatory regarding that phenomenon, but also sort of demoralizing in the sense that there's not really anything I can do to probably bridge that gap, you know. It says here, ownership is key to civility. This is true in everyday life, as in voting. Kierkegaard says, if I enter a place where many are gathered, it often happens that for one or another, right away, takes up. Let me start this over. I don't know where the I is. That's the problem here. Oh, there it is. Okay. If I enter a place where many are gathered, it often happens that one or another right away takes up arms against me by beginning to laugh. Presumably, he feels he's being a tool of public opinion. But lo and behold, if I then make a casual remark to him, the same person becomes infinitely pliable and obliging. Essentially, it shows that he regards me as something great, maybe even greater than I am, but if he can't be admitted as a participant in my greatness, at least he will laugh at me, hold me in contempt. But as soon as he becomes a participant, as it were, he brags about my greatness. So this is from Kierkegaard, 1847, and it's true that those who feel excluded will feel spiteful towards that in which they do not participate. This is true of me and my YouTube channel. If they don't feel as though that I respect them and their contributions in some way, if I don't convey that to them or make them included in some fashion, if depending on the nature of the individual dealing with, they may become what I refer to as a spite monkey, namely somebody who's exclusively concerned with doing harm and not contributing civilly to the discourse and just being uncivil and not contributing things that are relevant. So the last little bit from this case I think that I want to read is this Requisites for Democracy card, which is extension on Smith. Sustaining a citizen democracy requires trusting those you oppose to be moderate enough, anyway, in both victory and defeat. Moderation in this instance, I'm talking about, means treating the electoral losers fairly. So, requisites for democracy, according to Nutter, who's talking about de Tocqueville. For democracy to work, the public and politicians must be prepared to compromise on virtually all important issues. This requires that they possess a tradition of ceding power peacefully. To allow the other folk to take over peacefully, the group losing power must be sure that they will not be prosecuted, persecuted, or shot by the incoming administration. Moreover, those who lose a vote must assume that they have a fair chance to win power in a future election. In addition, office holders who lose elections need to be able to find decent alternative employment in the private sector. Thus, a prosperous middle class and significant private business sector can be important. This this is what I'm talking about at the end of the day is, are we working together as a team with who's not always in agreement towards a common good and common goal, and or are we working in opposition in a zero-sum fashion to finally defeat the enemy, the wrong people, and take over completely ourselves? If we're in that latter camp, then we are displaying what I would call a totalizing worldview. I am not on either side of this political divide, nor am I a libertarian, nor am I any other political label you might be able to come up with, except a principled pragmatist. What does this mean? Well, for example, in my last video that I put up, a commenter indicated that he didn't like my homelessness plan because it federalized something that wasn't currently federalized, and the scope of the federal government is already excessive and exceeds that which is the constitutional constraint on it. So the thing is, that's exactly the sort of person that I need on my team, because I, as myself, a very logical thinker, what's in cognitive functions is called TI, my job is to not be too attached to my own TI dogma. Now, what that means is I am a principled person, but I can't allow myself to be consumed by my own evaluatory preferences. So, yeah, I would like to see the federal government constrained. We're on the same basic side there, right? But on this one issue, I see it as a rare opportunity to actually provide a central solvency to something that naturally occurs, that's non-coercive, and for a lot of other benefits that we ought not prioritize in this instance, that that frame of reference that always precludes action unless it's entirely legitimate according to principled mechanisms. Now, you might argue that we thereby run the risk of being arbitrary in our decision making, and that's a fair critique. But my point is, be real about what we're talking about. We're talking about available candidates who are running for president of the most powerful country in the world, and who is more qualified ultimately? Who do you really trust to be prudent and wise in decision making? It's my hope that after this video and a number of others that will follow, that you'll conclude that that person is me, that I am actually qualified to be president of the United States for a number of reasons. One of which is that I understand the importance of not singularizing any particular frame of reference and making sure that everybody feels as though their own frame of reference is included as a participant in this grand democratic operation we have called the United States of America. So thanks very much for watching. I encourage you once again to write in my name on the ballot in 2020. And coming up in some point in the relatively near future, there'll be a way in which you can donate to my campaign. I'm going to establish a separate account that's a campaign account, and it'll be isolated from all my personal monies and stuff. It'll all be public record. You'll be able to see how that money's spent and everything. And once I get that set up, then I will have a donate link available for those who wish to donate to the campaign. But in the meantime, simply sharing these videos with friends or talking about them, mentioning me in some fashion, would be extremely helpful and appreciated. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please do put them in the comment section, and I'll make an effort to address them in upcoming videos. Thank you very much for watching. God bless America, and vote Strauss 2024, and write in Strauss, Eric Strauss, for 2020. Thank you.